It's my pleasure now to introduce your speaker. Brian Jewell is the executive editor of Bank Travel Management Magazine, also the group travel leader and some other publications that we publish. And Brian has traveled a lot, like many of you, all over the world, and has come up with a pretty fascinating sort of a profile of some of the types of travelers and travel personalities that you will encounter and are already encountering on your trips, and how you deal with those folks. And I think you'll find this entertaining and very, very educational. It's my pleasure to introduce Brian Jewell.
How's everybody doing? Wonderful. I'm excited to be here with you guys. And I like to move around a lot when I speak, so can you guys still hear me? Is this microphone on? Awesome. Well, as Mac mentioned, I have been traveling a lot for the past 10 years now. It's hard to believe, but it's been 10 years since I started working as a junior writer for Bank Travel Management and the other publications in our family of brands. And now I'm the executive editor of the magazines, but in all this time I've had the great honor to visit 48 US states and something like 25 foreign countries. And a lot of that has been trips I've taken with some of you guys. In fact, 10 years ago I was traveling with companies that are represented here today, and I've been on a lot of trips with some of you bank directors and FAMs, and even hopped on some of the coaches with your regular groups, and have enjoyed that tremendously. So I'm really excited to get a chance today to share with you some of my thoughts about what's happening in our industry right now, because there's a lot happening, and there's a lot that we need to really grab hold of and adjust if we're going to be successful for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Basically, as long as you expect your career to last, we need to make sure we're doing the right things to make those careers successful. I want to bring your attention to an article that appeared in the New York Times just on Sunday. In fact, it's so recent I didn't even get a chance to put it in the presentation. But the New York Times travel section had an article on Sunday that was talking about the impact of baby boomers in the travel and tourism market. And for most part, it was a fine article. You know, it made a lot of interesting points about how the taste of boomers have really changed the way that tourism works, and has shaped the way that tourism works all throughout the 20th century, because the tourism industry that we know today really came of age in the second half of the 20th century. And baby boomers were children early in that time. Then as they grew and became adults and had disposable income, they became very, very influential in the way tourism works. So it's an interesting article. I encourage you to check it out. Except there's one problem with it. And the problem is that about halfway through the article, they quote some so-called expert who goes through all the normal, usual hand-wringing that we've heard these days about how baby boomers won't take tours. Yeah, I mean, they just flat out say, oh, you'll never get a baby boomer on a bus tour. You know, you can never get baby boomers to travel in groups. And this is somebody that doesn't really have any expertise. They don't really know, but they said, yeah, tour operators are all going to go out of business because boomers don't want to travel in groups. Well, does anybody know what the problem with that is? It's just not true. It's just not true. And I know that, and you know that, because we have all been on trips with baby boomers, with baby boomer customers in a group setting, and we've seen them have a great time. And this isn't a presentation about baby boomers per se, but that article was a great starting point because it brings us to face some of the issues that do exist in group tourism. Here's the fundamental challenge of group travel. You've got a bunch of people with different interests, different activity levels, different ideas about what is fun on the road, and you've got to get them all together for a few days or a week, or some trips are a couple of weeks. And you got to try to keep them all happy. And if you've worked with groups for very long, you know it can be tough to keep people happy for like 2 hours together, or on an overnight trip together, let alone for a 7 or 10 or 14-day trip together. That's a real challenge. How do you keep a diverse group of people all happy for that length of time on the road? It's a big question. And it's a question that is becoming more and more relevant in today's travel market. You see, group travel really came of age about halfway through the last century, and the people that were driving group travel at that point were the people from the World War II generation, or the greatest generation, right? The baby boomers' parents. And they just had different generational ideas and expectations about travel and what it should be. And they didn't really mind to get on a bus together and go somewhere and see some sights and work as a sort of traveling community, that was okay for them. They didn't have any trouble with it. They were really happy just to be going anywhere and be seeing anything. And it made it pretty easy to plan trips for these kinds of people because they were easy to please, right? You just took them somewhere, you made sure they didn't have to carry their luggage, that they didn't have to think about which hotel they were going to stay in that night, and you showed them a good time, and everybody was happy. Problem is, that's not a relevant model for the new generation of travelers. So we got to figure out how to make these new travelers happy within the context of a group setting. There's a generational shift underway, and it's changing group travel. Think about this. When we talk about baby boomers, they're the most catered to generation in the history of America. Ever since they were born, they have been advertised to, marketed to, pandered to their whole lives. There are more advertisers and marketers out there trying to figure out how to get discretionary income out of baby boomers than any other generation that has existed up to this point. And because of that, and because of many other cultural things that happen, boomers are very demanding travelers, and they're looking for customized experiences. There are a couple of assumptions that have been at the basis of group travel for a long time, and maybe they worked for a while, but if we continue to work on those assumptions today, we're going to get into real dangerous territory. Let's take a look at the first of those assumptions. First assumption is that there are some attractions out there that are so great that everyone on the tour is going to enjoy them. These might be places like the Grand Canyon, the Statue of Liberty, the Eiffel Tower, the pyramids of Egypt, and certainly these are great places, and certainly a lot of people on your trip are going to enjoy them. But is it true that everybody will enjoy them? We'll come back to that. Second assumption, if you plan enough variety into your tours, you can create trips that have something for everyone. I can't tell you guys how many times I have been interviewing someone for an article from a tour operator or a CVB or a state travel office, and they tell me, yeah, our destination really has something for everyone. Something for everyone, something for everyone. And honestly, guys, I've heard it so much that it's kind of become meaningless. Like it's one of those things that just glazes right past me. It doesn't register with me anymore because everybody says it. So does it really have any meaning or impact if that's the way that everybody markets themselves? I'm not sure that it does. Here are the realities that kind of confront these two assumptions that we've been making for a while. The first reality, even though we think that there are some attractions so great that everybody will love them, reality is there will always be someone who finds a reason not to like something. How many of you know that there is always one person? There is always that one, and some of you are picturing them in your head right now. You see their face and your blood pressure is going up as we speak. There will always be at least one person in your group that can find a reason not to like even the best thing. You take them to see the Grand Canyon and they'll complain that it was too cold. It was too windy. You give them an hour to explore, and some people are going to say, how am I supposed to see the Grand Canyon in an hour? And then other people say, why did you leave me here for an hour? Even the greatest of places has real logistical challenges when we talk about group travel. The reality confronting us with the second assumption is that a something for everyone tour leaves everyone bored most of the time. Let's stop and think that through for a minute. It may sound wrong, but let's say you've got a tour day with like 5 different things on your itinerary. And you try to plan it in such a way that those things are different and diverse, and everyone on your tour should like one of those 5 things. Well, that's nice during the 2 hours that person is doing the one thing they like. But that means there are 4 other things on that itinerary that day that the person doesn't really care about, they're not really interested in, and they're just waiting to get through it. So a something for everyone tour leaves everyone bored most of the time. And that is not the way to capture the attention of the travelers of tomorrow. Baby boomers won't do boredom. Gen X certainly won't do boredom. Millennials don't even know what boredom is. You know what I'm saying? They've never been bored because they've had gadgets and technology and the internet to entertain them their whole lives. Boredom doesn't cut it anymore. So we're entering this crazy new period of customization in group travel. This is what's going on. This is what today's traveler wants. They don't want something for everyone anymore. What they want is everything for me. Everything for me. Everything that they do on a tour needs to suit them. It needs to make them happy. It needs to tickle their fancy. And if there's something they do on a tour that they don't enjoy, they may not come on the next tour. That's just the world we're in. Now, all is not lost. I don't believe our industry is facing impending doom. We just have to adjust a little bit. In order to provide great travel experiences for this new generation of travelers, we need to figure out what they like, what they really like, what sorts of things attract them to trips, and then we need to learn how we can deliver that to them on a consistent basis. And that's not as hard as it sounds. As I mentioned, I've been traveling for 10 years and have probably been on 100 or more tours of different types during those years. Fam tours, press tours, travel writers tours, straight up consumer tours, individual tours. And I've met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on those tours and have kind of noticed that there are 6 main types of travel personalities that are common in a touring group. So if we can figure out how these travel personalities work, we can figure out how to cater to these people individually. So let's see if you recognize some of these people from your groups, all right? 6 travel personalities. We'll start with the first one. First one is the Epicurean. The Epicurean. What is an Epicurean? Well, it's a person who travels with their senses. They value sensory experiences on the road. It's about what they can see, hear, smell, touch, and taste. Certainly, culinary experiences are a big deal for Epicureans. They love food and mealtime. Mealtime may very well be their favorite part of a tour. For these guys, they just kind of sit through the attractions and the shows and stuff and then really come alive when you sit down to eat lunch or dinner. But they're also looking for really distinctive culinary experiences. They're not satisfied just to go to a chain restaurant or just to hit a buffet or something like that. They want really distinctive culinary experiences that reflect the place they're visiting. They also highly value things like the arts, musical experiences, concerts, anything that brings them into a sensory experience where they're kind of washed over by colors, sounds, textures, aromas, flavors. That's the Epicurean. And I know a lot about Epicureans because that's my travel personality. That's what I love. My favorite time of any travel day is mealtime. Out of curiosity, how many of you guys would describe yourselves as Epicureans? Cool, maybe 15, 20%. That's about average. How many of you recognize that type of person from your travel groups? Quite a few of you. Very good. With the popularity of culinary and arts in today's culture, I expect to see more and more of these kinds of people coming on tours because food tourism is hot right now. It's really hot. Next, the adventurer. The adventurer. We know what adventure is, but what does it mean in terms of group travel? Who is the adventurer and what are they looking for? Well, the adventurer is someone who's looking for thrills that they can't get at home. They're dying to go exploring on their own. An adventurer does not want to be cooped up on the bus or with the group for the entire time. They don't really want to be told where to be and when to be there and what they have to do and what they have to see. They want to be turned loose to experience a destination. They really crave free time on a group trip. And they're often the same type of people that enjoy the outdoors, that will go on high adrenaline activities, physical activities. How many of you guys would describe yourselves as adventurers? Again, 10, 15%. How many of you guys have those in your groups? Cool. Again, I think we're going to see this becoming more common because baby boomers are healthier for their age than their parents were at the same time. And so things that the traditional group travelers wouldn't or couldn't do because of physical limitations, baby boomers can do and want to do. That's an important thing to keep in mind. Number 3 is the connector. The connector. This is kind of different, but it's really, really cool. The connector is that person in your group that is very outgoing, extremely extroverted. They're the kind of people that never met a stranger, and they collect friends like notches on their belt, right? They can make a friend in 5 minutes. You know, they leave a restaurant and they're friends and changing phone numbers with their waiter. They're that kind of person. They want to meet the locals when they travel. They want to make friends with the locals. They value what we call people-to-people experiences. That is not just doing things that are tourism industry activities or meeting people who work in hospitality, but they want to meet the local people in the destination that you visit, and they want to learn what it's like to live there. They want to have a little bit of that experience that gives them an idea of what it's like to be a citizen of France or a citizen of Texas, or to live in a small arts community. They want to feel that experience. They really enjoy things like in-home visits, some of those people-to-people experiences that we mentioned. They also tend to be the kind of people that enjoy some of the experiences that make the rest of us uncomfortable. I'll give you an example. How many of you guys have had a group at a dinner show or a musical performance or some place where there's dancing going on? There are dance performers on stage. And invariably, as part of the show, they're going to go out into the audience and pull some of you guys up to dance with them. You guys know what I'm talking about? Well, I'm not a dancer, and I'm not particularly a connector. But doggone it, if they don't pick me out every single time, and I don't know why. I don't know if there's some invisible sign over my head that says, pick me, but I'm the guy that's sitting there thinking, oh gosh, don't pick me, please don't pick me. I'm not the one thinking I'm gonna demur shyly, but then once I get up there, I'm gonna have a great time. No, I'm not gonna have a great time. I'm gonna trudge through it until the experience is over and then hope it doesn't happen again for a while. But there are people in your group that are sitting there thinking, I hope they pick me, I hope they pick me. And so we need to find a way to get them to pick those people so they can stop picking me. So if you guys can figure that out for me, I would really appreciate it. Connectors love that kind of thing. Next up, this is an interesting one, but I think it's really important, and it's the pilgrim. The pilgrim. The word pilgrim kind of brings up images of faith-based or religious travel, and while that's certainly a part of what this can be, I'm using pilgrim in a way here that just talks about people that have a really strong connection to the places they're going. It can be a religious connection, and if you took a group to the Holy Land or something like that, then you probably would have a lot of pilgrims on that tour, people that are looking to have special experiences that speak to their faith in the Holy Land. But the pilgrim is just somebody who is on a mission to see a destination or a site. Other tour components may not matter as much as that one place that they're really dying to see, or that one attraction that really turns them on. It can be something simple like a music fan who's really excited to see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on a tour of Cleveland. Or it can be something really profound, like someone on a tour of France getting to stop on the beach in Normandy where his grandfather died on the D-Day invasion. Whatever it is, somebody has a close, personal, emotional connection to a place. And this personality type may not be as common as the others, but when you come across it in your tour, it's really powerful and it can also be really challenging. You see, because they have these emotional attachments to the target destinations, these people can sometimes become frustrated when the rest of the group doesn't value that place or that visit the same way they do. They don't understand why everybody isn't being more respectful, or why everybody doesn't want to spend more time there, or why everybody's just going to the gift shop, because this place means so much to them. That's a pilgrim. And you're not going to find one on every tour necessarily, but when you do find one in your group, they're looking to have a powerful experience. And if you can find a way to deliver that experience for them, you're going to be their friend for life. How many of you all have encountered something like that somewhere on the road? Good. Next, somebody that I call the learner. And the learner is a traveler who really values history and wants to know the details of the places you're visiting. Learners are fascinated by facts and figures and trivia. They're the kind of people that will pepper the tour guide with questions. In fact, learners are the ones that actually stay awake during tour guide commentary when you're on that 2-hour stretch on the coach, right? Where the guide feels like he needs to fill in that 2 hours of driving time with commentary, so he launches into his commentary about the ethnological history of Asia Minor or something. I've sat through that presentation, which is why I bring that up. It's incredibly boring. But the learner loves it, and the learner's going to be the one that's awake and listening and really enjoys that. The learner also is the kind of person that wants to linger at a museum, and they're going to go exhibit by exhibit and read every informational panel, word for word, which means if you've budgeted an hour's worth of time at a museum, you're going to have to drag them out of there, and they're not going to be very happy with you. That's the learner. How many of you all have seen that? Everybody has seen that. Good. All right. Finally, this is one of my favorites, and I'm being a little facetious with this photo, but the sixth travel personality is the vacationer. And they don't always look like this, but sometimes they do. And you all know what I'm talking about. The vacationer is that person on your trip that is just looking for a good time. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. They're just looking to have fun. They're not interested in working too hard, getting up too early, or having to live by too many rules and requirements. They don't want to pay attention. They don't want to have to think. They're just there to have a good time. They're satisfied with a postcard, a t-shirt, or a beer mug, you know? In general, the vacationers are the type of people that love shopping, and they want to stop at every single retail outlet along the way. Your vacationers are the people, when you take that hour-long trip to the museum and your learners go to look at all the informational panels, your vacationers are the ones that go straight to the gift shop, all right? The vacationer tends to be the target audience for what I call passive entertainment. Dinner theater, shows, kind of lighthearted entertainment, cultural events, things where you don't really have to do anything except sit there and hope you don't get picked on to dance, right? So those are the 6 travel types, and there's a couple things that I want to note that help us sort of figure out how to cater to these sort of people. Number one is that people can fit into more than one category. You don't have to have just one primary travel type. I, for instance, tend to be Epicurean with kind of a healthy side of adventure thrown in there. And depending where I go, you know, depending what activities are on the itinerary, then I may kind of come out on one side or come out on the other side a little bit stronger. And so you'll probably notice in yourself or also in people in your group that not everybody has one specific personality, but you kind of get a sense as you get to know people where they're leaning, you know, what their autopilot sort of takes them to. Here's something else I want to mention while we're talking about these. Traditional group traveler spends too much time catering to the needs of learners and vacationers to the exclusion of everybody else. That's a bit of a bold statement, and I'm challenging a lot of norms that have been going on for a long time, but I see this all the time in group travel. We mentioned the guides doing the 2-hour commentary on the bus ride. Well, if we can be honest with ourselves, how many really want to hear that commentary? Not very many of us do. And in fact, we're entering an age where most people on the trip are going to want to entertain themselves with their iPods, their iPads, their smartphones. You know, in the 80s, it was a big innovation when people started putting little TVs on a motor coach and you could pop in a movie to play during that time. If you could get the guide to shut up, you could put on a movie. Well, now, those movies are totally irrelevant. You know, people don't even want to watch a movie now. They don't want you to put on a CD of Celtic music as you drive through the British Isles because they've brought their own. They want to load up their own movie. They want to pop in their earbuds and listen to a podcast or something. They want to entertain themselves. They're used to entertaining themselves. And anything that you or the guide does that demands their attention is taking away from their own enjoyment. Also, I'm just going to put this out there, and you're free to disagree with me, and I'm okay with that. Please stop making me shop. I spend entirely too much time shopping on group tours. But you see, when I go shopping, this is what I do. You know, and eventually, I just get this guy out. You know, we take a half-hour stopping shop at some place along the route, and I'm bored for half an hour. And I think a lot of people in your group are bored for half an hour. And there's a small minority of your group that is demanding and wants those stopping shops, and I get that. But you're boring a lot of people for a lot of time. Here's the truth. I didn't buy anything at the first souvenir stand you took me to, and I'm not going to buy anything at the next one. Because the truth is, the more you travel around the world, you start to realize that all the stuff kind of looks the same, and it was all made in China anyway. So why are we doing so much shopping? I think that's an important question to ask, and I'm not telling you to take shopping out of your tours, but I am saying maybe we need to put it in context. So how do we take travel personalities and use them to build better tours? Because that's what this is really all about. I've got 5 suggestions, and I hope these will be really actionable things that you guys can use to make better products for your travelers. First thing you can do, and this is the most important, is learn your group's travel personalities. Ask them what they enjoy. Ask them questions. And I know a lot of you guys already do this, and that's a great start. But figuring out how your group members like to experience travel helps you to create trips that will resonate with them, things they're going to look forward to and enjoy and remember. So ask them what their favorite tour components are. And then maybe you can consider asking some of your most frequent travelers for ideas when you're putting together new trips. Ask them where they would like to go and what they'd like to do when they're there. You might get some surprising answers. And those answers may not be the things that are included in all the rack itineraries, but it'll give you some great new ideas. Number 2, I want you to find activities and attractions that will appeal to more than one type of travel personality. And that sounds a little bit challenging, but it's really possible. Let me give you some examples. Agritourism, when you take people to visit a farm or an orchard or something like that, a vineyard. Agritourism can appeal to learners, connectors, and Epicureans if you set it up right. You just have to make sure that your learners get to learn all they want about how the farm works. Make sure your connectors get to meet a farmer, make friends with the farmer, and learn about their life. And then make sure that your Epicureans get to taste some of the produce. Instead of just dropping everybody off at the farm store so that, half the group can kind of browse around for pastries and cider and all that kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with buying those things, but it can be such a rich experience if you make sure that all those components are available to the people that want to take advantage of them. The right kind of outdoor activities can appeal to both adventurers and vacationers. And the high-profile sites that we talked about earlier, the ones where it's easy to think that everybody's going to like them, you may be able to set up a situation where those do appeal to everybody in your group. But it's your job to make sure that you are delivering opportunities for those people to have the different kinds of experiences they want. When you go to the Grand Canyon, some people are going to want to take a nature hike there. Some people are going to want to eat in the restaurant that serves food made by the Native Americans that are common in that area. Some people are going to want to shop there. So what you've got to find ways to do is facilitate the different experiences that those people want to have at the same place. Turning them loose is okay, but if you turn them loose with some direction and some ideas and some suggestions, and you've set up some things ahead of time, you say if you want to do an art project, then that guy over there is waiting for you, and if you want to go hiking, then this guy over here is waiting for you. That's how you make these places appeal to everyone at the same time. Planning a trip with these personalities goes beyond putting attractions on an itinerary. It means planning experiences. That's a real key difference, because you can slap a museum or a store or a show on an itinerary and think that you don't have to do any more work, but that's going to leave you back in that situation where a lot of people are bored. So don't think of yourselves as trip planners, think of yourselves as experience planners, experience creators, experience facilitators. If you have pilgrims in your group, find ways to help them make their experience special. And it may require a little bit of extra legwork, and it may require finding a way to get them some free time away from the group so they can have that special spiritual or emotional or intellectual experience that they need to have at that special place. It will take a little bit of effort, but they will love you for doing it. And it will be possibly the most memorable trip they've ever taken. And it'll make them much more likely to travel with you again. Next, use free time and flex time. Now, free time you all have put into itineraries before. It gives each of the travel personalities opportunities to pursue their own interests. But you probably also know that there are some people in your group that are uncomfortable finding something to do for themselves. It's a real conundrum. Some people want a lot of free time, and then some people, if you give them free time, they look at you like you just betrayed them. Like, what do you mean? You're not entertaining me? You're not taking me where I want to go? So if your group doesn't really love free time, try the idea of flex time. What is flex time? Well, it simply means you're doing more than one thing at the same time on a trip. And that can sound difficult, but when you think about the logistics of it, it makes a lot of sense, and it's not too difficult. Traditional group tourism, you got one bus, you got 40, 50 people on it, whatever, and that bus takes all the people to each place on the itinerary. But let me ask you this, what does the bus driver spend most of his day doing? Sitting. And you have paid to rent a coach, either directly to a coach company or indirectly through the tour operator that paid to rent a coach. You paid to rent a coach for days or a week or whatever, and most of the time you're not getting anything for your money because the coach and the driver are just sitting there. So instead of a situation where we take everybody on the tour to all of the stops, what if we create a menu of different options for people to do every day? Some people can go to the theater, some people can go to the spa, some people can go hiking, some people can go to the museum. You see, when you take the bus to the theater, you can drop off the people that want to go to the theater. But the bus doesn't have to stay there. It can then go to the national park for the hikers, and then it can go to the spa for the people that want a massage. And then it can take people to the museum. And then when the show ends, the bus is ready to pick the people up at the show, and then pick up the hikers, and then pick up the spa aficionados, and then pick up the museum lovers. It doesn't take that much more effort, but it gives people such a feeling of customization, gives them a feeling of freedom, it gives them a feeling of empowerment and choice. And for those of you that are sitting there saying, well, that sounds like a lot of work, I've seen it done. I've seen it done. There are companies here that have done it. I've been on their trips, I've experienced it, and it's great. And maybe it is a lot of work, but I believe it's really worthwhile, and I believe it's a big part of the keys to making tours attractive for the new generation of travelers. Number 4, consider creating special interest mini tours. A few times a year, maybe put together a tour that is designed to cater to just one of the personalities, or one or two of the personalities. And this requires changing our mindset a little bit, because we're all used to trying to fill a coach and pricing our trips, based on whatever it is, 30 people, 40 people, and that's how we work. Well, a special interest mini tour is probably going to be smaller, but that's okay. All you have to do is adjust the size of the transportation you're using, adjust your pricing, do whatever you need to do to make the tour work with 10 people, or 12 people, or 15 people, or however many people are going to sign up for a culinary tour, or a hiking tour, or just a shopping tour. And then load 3 or 4 or 5 days with all those kinds of activities. So those people are getting to do what they want every minute of the tour, instead of just getting to do a few things they like and suffering through the rest. If you try this, I think you're going to find that it's a great opportunity for relationship building. The people that go on those tours build really strong friendships with each other because they have common interests to start with. You're starting on common ground, and so you're going to build a lot of great friendships. And that's a lot of what bank travel is all about. These trips are also likely to be some of the most enjoyable that your travelers have. I think if you cater to them for 4 or 5 days and they don't have to sit through anything they don't want to do, it's going to be one of the best travel experiences of their life. And if you give somebody the best travel experience of their life, you're going to have a customer for life. My last tip is pretty simple. Work hard, get creative, enlist help. I'm not here to say that these things are easy. I know they're not easy. I know the work that you guys do is not easy. I don't want to downplay all the effort that goes into that. But let me tell you this, any destination can be packaged to appeal to any travel personality. It just takes some legwork and some creative thinking. Let me also tell you this room over the next couple of days is going to be full of people from CVBs and states and national tourism offices and tour operators, and they're up against the same thing you guys are. They just deal with it on a bigger scale. But they also have ideas, and they have experience, and if you ask them, if you prod them a little bit, they can come up with products and experiences and tours that are going to meet some of these unique personality requirements. And it may not be what's in their rack brochure, and they may act a little bit uncomfortable with it at first. But if you tell them, this is really important to me, this is really important to my travelers, the pros are really going to come through for you. Finally, never ever settle for last year's itinerary. Never ever settle for last year's itinerary. If you go to Alaska this year, don't do the same thing you did there 2 years ago. If you go to Wisconsin this year, don't hit all the same places you did last time. Always evolve, always develop, always grow your products according to what you have learned about your travelers and their personalities. I hope that's helpful. It's been a pleasure to share with you guys today. You can find more information at banktravelmanagement.com and follow me on Twitter at GroupTravelBrian. Thanks for having me. Y'all have a great show.